How are we to negotiate this choppy sea? Tranquility that you crave so much when it seems that external circumstances want to drag you down here is where these 8 simple strategies rooted in Stoic philosophy are going to offer you a roadmap. They are not magic tricks but principles of life that the great sages of antiquity practiced daily and that we can also apply today even in such a different world. First, accept what is without resisting. One of the deepest teachings of Stoicism is the radical acceptance of reality as it is. Sometimes life doesn't go as we planned, and that's when our mind is flooded with frustration, anger, or sadness. But this is where the Stoics offer us a different perspective. Instead of fighting against what you can't change, accept what is as it is. This idea sums it up perfectly when it says, "Destiny guide to those who accept it drags those who resist it." Internal resistance to what happens generates enormous mental discomfort. Think, how many times have you been frustrated by something that has already happened, or by a situation that did not go as you expected? We resist reality because we want things to be different, and that desire to change it immutable creates a constant tension. It is like rowing against the current, using all of our energy to move in the opposite direction of what is happening. Accepting what is does not mean being passive or resigning ourselves to things never changing. Rather, it is about recognizing that there are times in life that we cannot control or modify. Stoic acceptance is a way to release that resistance that consumes us, and in doing so, our mind relaxes. Is to stop fighting with reality and start flowing with it. Sometimes resistance arises because we think that accepting something negative means that we are okay with it or that we are allowing it to affect us, but in reality, acceptance is a way of creating mental space. When you accept what is happening, you take away the power that it has over you, and from that place of calm you can think more clearly and make better decisions. I put you a simple example. Imagine that you are stuck in traffic and you realize that you are going to be late for an important meeting. You have 2 options. You can mentally resist, curse the traffic, feel frustrated and stressed, which does not change anything, or you can accept that you are in that situation and that it is what it is. The first option generates a lot of unnecessary mental noise, while the second gives you peace of mind necessary to face the situation in the best possible way. Acceptance is like a muscle that you can train. Every time you find yourself in a situation that you cannot change, remember the words of Seneca and ask yourself, am I letting this drag me down, or can I let it guide me? By accepting what you cannot control, you reduce mental friction, and as a result your mind calms down. Marcus Aurelius also understood it well. When I said the universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make of it. If you resist change, you are constantly faced with frustration. But if you accept it as part of life, you find an unexpected calm. Because life is not what happens around us, but how we decide to interpret it and react to it. Accepting what is without resisting is one of the most powerful ways to calm your life. Method, or considering possible outcomes. Should I fail, what then? And should things not go as planned? This continual mental swing wears us out, causes tension, and steals our tranquility. The Stoic secret is to be present, the one thing that really exists and the only thing we can really change. Everything else is mental constructs, ghosts of something that no longer exists. We can change our anticipations of what has not yet arrived, and here is the trick. The more time we spend focused on what is not present, the further away we are from mental calmness. Practice mindfulness, which is also known today as mindfulness. It means taking your mind to the present moment over and over again. This does not mean that you ignore the past or the future, but that you learn to recognize when you're getting caught up in them and consciously bringing your attention back to the present. It's a daily workout, and at first it may seem difficult because our mind is so used to wandering. But the more you practice it, the more you realize how powerful this mind-calming tool is. Think about those moments when you're completely immersed in something. It can be an interesting conversation, a book that grabs you, or even something as simple as enjoying a meal without distractions. In those moments your mind is calm. There are no worries because you are completely present in what you do. That is the essence of this strategy. A technique that you can start practicing it is simply to pay attention to your breath. When you feel your mind begin to fill with thoughts about the past or the future, pause and take a few deep breaths. Focus on the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body. This anchors you to the present. Marcus Aurelius also mentioned it. Pay attention to what is in front of you, to the tasks you have at this moment. When you learn to train your mind to return to the hour, something incredible happens. All that mental noise begins to diminish. The thoughts do not disappear, but they no longer drag you with the same intensity in the present. There is no room for regrets of the past or anxieties of the future. There is only what you are doing at this very moment, and that gives you a sense of calm and control that is difficult to achieve otherwise. In short, the practice of mindfulness helps you cut those cycles of thoughts that fill your mind with unnecessary noise. By bringing your attention back to the present, you give yourself realize that the here and now is enough, and when your mind settles in the present moment, it is when you truly find peace of mind. Third practice, emotional detachment. Emotional detachment is one of those tools of Stoicism that, when you understand and apply them, can completely transform your way of seeing the world. And we are not talking about becoming a cold or distant person. On the contrary, Stoic detachment, it's about loving deeply, committing to people and situations, but not letting your happiness depend entirely on outcomes or things that are out of your control. Seneca, she explained it clearly when she said love, but as someone who knows it won't last forever, it sounds strong, right? But the purpose behind it is that when we become too emotionally attached to something, a person, a possession, an idea of the future, we end up being slaves to it the moment something changes, either by external circumstances or by the very nature of life. Attachment causes us unwarranted anguish. What does it really mean to practice emotional detachment? It means to live fully, to appreciate what you have and the relationships you have built, but without clinging to the idea that without those things you could not be happy. Think about how many times you've experienced anxiety or mental pain because you feared losing something, a job, a relationship, an opportunity. That feeling of emotional dependency fills us with fear, and when reality doesn't align with our expectations, suffering is inevitable. Detachment is not cold indifference. It's a way to free yourself from the control that external results have on your well-being. The Stoics believed that you could love something deeply, but also understand that everything is temporary. When you manage to practice this type of detachment, your mind calms down because you are no longer constantly worried about what you could lose. You live the present with gratitude, but without everything being permanent. An everyday example of this could be attachment to material goods. Imagine that you have a car that you love. It is okay to take care of it and appreciate it. However, if you get too connected to it, the smallest technical issue might destroy your day, even your week. Practicing detachment would be stating, I cherish this automobile, but I recognize that it's just an item. If tomorrow I won't have it anymore, I'll be okay. This not only frees you from anxiety, but also gives you a healthier perspective on the things you have. Epictetus also offered us deep insight into detachment when he said, never say about anything, I've lost it, but I've given it back. The idea here is that everything in life is temporary, and that instead of seeing losses as something that is taken away from you, you can see them as a natural part of life, something that you have simply returned to the cycle of things. This mindset completely changes the way you deal with losses, whether big or small. When you start to practice emotional detachment, you notice that situations that previously filled you with anxiety or stress begin to lose its weight. Is not that you become indifferent, but that you no longer allow those situations to control your peace of mind. You realize that true happiness and tranquility come from within, not from what you possess or from the people in your life. Detachment offers you incredible mental freedom. By not being emotionally tied to the results, you can enjoy life in a fuller way, more present without the constant worry of losing what you love, and in that freedom is where you really find calm. Fourth, reflect daily on your day. One of the most powerful practices that the Stoics teach us is daily self-reflection. Marco Aurelio, in his meditations, used to write about his thoughts, his actions, and how he had faced the difficulties of the day. It was not just a habit, it was a tool for constant improvement. He told the end of the day, take stock of yourself and examine your actions, what I've done wrong, what I've done right, what I can improve. This habit of daily reflection is one of the best ways to calm your mind and direct it towards continuous growth. Why it's so important? Because our mind is often filled with noise, not only because of what's going on around us, but also because of our own lack of clarity. We go through life on autopilot, repeating the same mistakes, reacting in the same ways, and often without stopping to think. Why daily reflection gives us the opportunity to pause, observe our behavior, and take control of our thoughts and actions. Imagine at the end of each day before bed, taking a few minutes to reflect on what you did. It's not about judging yourself or being yourself, but to look at yourself with curiosity and honesty. How you handled difficult situations. There were times when you lost your cool, you made decisions that you are proud of. This simple act of reviewing your day helps you understand yourself better and identify patterns in your behavior that may be causing stress or mental turmoil. Close to also talking about this habit of daily reflection, He said, at the end of the day, judge, write it all down, examine your words and your thoughts, because every day is a lifetime. By doing this type of self-evaluation, you become more aware of yourself and more able to adjust your approach when things don't go as you expected. In addition, this reflection not only helps you identify your mistakes, but also celebrate your small achievements. We live in a world that moves so fast that we don't realize the good things we do. Reflecting allows you to recognize those moments when you stayed calm, made a good decision, or acted wisely. These small recognitions are essential to reinforce your mental tranquility and build a stronger and more balanced mind. Every night, spend some time considering your day. If you would choose, you may jot it down in a notebook as Marcus Aurelius did. It helps you organize your ideas and provides a forum for you to let concerns that may still linger in your mind before bed go. It's a means of releasing any last tension and beginning the following day with a serene and peaceful mind. Claudine. One helpful activity you may perform is ask yourself 3 questions every night. What have I done well? Oh, just what may I have done better? The Stoics understood that our interpretation of events determines the basis of an agitated and nervous mind, not any outside circumstances. Epictetus clarified it brilliantly. Your interpretation of events determines what happens to you. This sentence sums up the core of our mental capacity. Distress really is as bad as I think it is. There is another way to interpret this situation. Controlling your thoughts does not mean suppressing them or ignoring them, but questioning them and directing them in a more constructive way. Whenever you feel that your mind begins to fill with any or overwhelming thoughts, you can ask yourself, this thought is helping me or making the situation worse? If the answer is that it is getting worse, you have the power to change it, to focus on something else useful or positive. This is where the Stoics introduced the idea of the discipline of thought. This discipline is a habit that is built over time and is about training your mind so that it does not dominate you with uncontrolled thoughts. Imagine that your mind is like a wild horse. At first it can be difficult to direct it, but with patience and practice you can take the reins and take it where you want. A useful exercise that you can practice is Stoic reframing. When you find yourself thinking something negative or stressful, try reframing that thought from a more objective perspective. For example, if you are faced with a problem at work, instead of thinking I will never be able to solve this, you could rephrase it as this is a challenge, but I can learn something from it by doing this. You reduce the power of negative thoughts and calm your mind. Aurelius in his meditations also talked about this ability to control our thoughts. He said, your soul is dyed the color of your thoughts. This means that what you think directly affects how you feel. If you fill your mind with dark or negative thoughts, your life will feel that way. But if you learn to guide your thoughts towards something more constructive, more rational, your mind will begin to find peace. By controlling your thoughts, not only you reduce mental noise, but you also become more self-aware. You realize that you have the power to choose how to react to any situation, and that realization is liberating. You can't always change what happens, but you can change the narrative your mind creates about it. Deliberately pause throughout the day. Modern society, we are constantly bombarded by stimuli, messages, emails, social networks, tasks that seem to never end, and without realizing it, we fall into the frenetic pace of life where taking a break seems almost impossible or even unnecessary. But the Stoics teach us something valuable. Breaks are not a luxury, they are a necessity to keep the mind calm and focused. Marcus Aurelius spoke about the importance of taking moments for oneself in the midst of chaos, saying people seek retreats in the countryside, on the beach, or in the mountains, but where they should retreat the most is within themselves. This phrase is an invitation to find moments of pause, of introspection in the midst of our daily lives. You don't need to go on vacation or withdraw from the world to find calm. You can do it at any time, simply by giving yourself permission to stop. Why pauses are so important? Because when we keep going without stopping, our mind becomes saturated, we become less productive, more irritable, and our thinking becomes more chaotic. A thoughtful and less impulsive practical illustration of this may be when you find yourself in a demanding scenario at work. Perhaps you are juggling a lot of chores or a challenging talk with a colleague. Rather than allowing worry to rule you, who is poor? In other words, our dissatisfaction comes more from our focus on what we lack than on the recognition of what we already have. Mental noise often arises from the constant desire to have more, to be more, to achieve things that we think we lack. We live in a culture that bombards us with the idea that we are not enough and that we always need something more to be happy. This generates a chronic dissatisfaction that keeps us in a state of constant agitation. But gratitude, that simple act of appreciating what you already have, is like an antidote to that mentality. Practicing gratitude is not about ignoring problems or being conformist. On the contrary, it is about training your mind to recognize the good things that are already present in your life. No matter how small they may be, the Stoics believe that by learning to appreciate what you have, you reduce the noise of dissatisfaction and find a deeper calm. As Marcus Aurelius said, remember that you don't need much to live a happy life. A simple but powerful exercise that you can start doing is to take a few minutes each day to reflect on the things you are grateful for. It doesn't have to be anything complicated or grandiose. It can be something as simple as having a roof over your head, a good friend to talk to, or even the coffee you enjoyed this morning. These little things, when you consciously recognize them, begin to change your perspective and consequently calm your mind. Imagine that every time you feel overwhelmed by problems or stress, instead of focusing on what you are lacking, you shift the focus to what you already have. It is a 180 GR turn. For example, if you are worried about money and instead of obsessing over what you don't have, you could reflect on what you've already achieved, the opportunities you've had, or even just having enough to eat and clothe yourself with. This doesn't magically solve problems, but it takes you out of the cycle of negative thoughts that generate anxiety and allows you to see things more clearly. Gratitude also has the power to change your relationship with people often. If instead you practice thankfulness for the little things that others do, relationships improve, and you feel more at peace at the end of the day. We concentrate on what others do for us, on what bothers or disappointments us, which increases the emotional cacophony in our heads. Being grateful helps one to realize that there is enough to be done, even if circumstances are not ideal. Telling the people around you how grateful you are for their presence or for what they have done for you not only strengthens your relationships, but also calms your mind by creating an environment of appreciation and positivity. Seneca also reminds us that gratitude is not only something we feel internal. 8. Learn to let go of the past. One of the main causes of mental noise is to cling to the past, the mistakes we made, the opportunity we missed, or the things that hurt us. Our mind gets stuck in that cycle, turning over and over again what we cannot change right now. While the Stoics had a clear vision, we generate an unwarranted emotional and mental strain in accomplishing this. Epictetus teaches us that while things may be altered, your attitude to them will determine how you handle it. Letting go of the past is embracing it and realizing you cannot alter it. It does not mean discounting it or pretending it never occurred. The past is immovable, and the energy you spend thinking about what could have been only generates more stress and anxiety. By learning to let go of it, you free yourself from that emotional weight and your mind finds more room for peace. When you cling to the past, it's like carrying a backpack full of stones. Every painful memory, every mistake you made, every bad decision is one more stone you carry. And there comes a point where that backpack becomes so heavy that it affects your ability to enjoy the present. Stoicism teaches us to leave that backpack behind, to learn from mistakes, but not to live trapped in them. Seneca explained it brilliantly when he said, "Don't let the past steal your present, because that's what happens when we don't let go. The past prevents us from fully living the here and now. Every time our mind gets entangled in it, I would have done this or should have said that. We are wasting the opportunity to live serenely in the present moment. Then how can you let go of the past effectively? One of the first things you can do is reflect on what ties you to that memory. It's a mistake you made, a situation that didn't go as you expected. Ask yourself, can I change this? Now, if the answer is no, then it's time to let it go. This doesn't mean you can't learn from that experience, but once you've learned, it doesn't make sense to keep carrying it. Forgiveness also plays a fundamental role in letting go of the past, and not only forgiveness towards others, but forgiveness towards yourself. We are often our own worst critics, and the things we cannot let go of are many times the mistakes we made. But here comes the Stoic wisdom. You cannot change what you did, but you can decide not to let it continue to haunt you. By forgiving yourself, you free yourself from the burden of remorse and allow your mind calms down. Epictetus also said something key: it is impossible to learn if we are not willing to let go of our mistakes, because clinging to the past keeps you stagnant. If you continue to live in what you did wrong, you will never be able to move towards what you could do well. Now learning comes from recognition and acceptance of our failures, not from obsession with them. Exercise useful to help you let go of the past is visualization. Imagine that those painful memories or those mistakes are like balloons that you hold in your hands. Visualize how little by little you let them go and see them move away until they disappear into the distance. It is not about making them disappear completely from your memory, but about stopping clinging to them so tightly. This simple mental act can help you feel lighter and release the emotional charge that those memories generate. Grateful that you are by their presence or by what they have done for you not only strengthens your relationships but also calms your mind by creating an environment of appreciation and positivity.